Hello, everyone. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. How's everyone doing? Good morning, Patrick. Good morning, John. Good morning, McRangers. Good morning, Bullstrike Cheetah. Good morning, Jake the Snake. Good morning, Andrea. Welcome. Good morning, David. Good morning, Heinrich. Good morning to everyone in the background. Let's see. Yep, a bunch of people in the background. So, how are we doing this fine Tuesday? Hope everyone had a wonderful Monday. No problem, Sterling. Thank you for tuning in. Hope work is going well. Hope everyone who had a nice Memorial Day, who were celebrating Memorial Day in the USA. Other than that, let's see. We're now into the month end. Good morning, Ted. How are you doing? Good morning, Daniel. We're into month end this week. Remember Friday. Friday is the 30th, the last trading day of the month. Anything news related? Only if you find something interesting. I don't know how much interesting there was. I mean, there's just more tariff talk about deals getting made this morning. Potential new sanctions on Putin and Russia. So nothing shocking this morning. Hello, Charles. Good morning, Harold. All right. What else? We had durable goods coming out, drop in durable goods. It was expected to drop, coming in at minus 6.3, better than consensus at minus 7.8. X transport was bumped up 0.2 versus expected drop of minus 0.1. We had the home price index dropping on a month over month and coming in lower year over year than prior. So what else do we have? We have consumer confidence coming out at 10 Eastern, Dallas manufacturing at 10:30 Eastern, but not a lot. And then Fed Williams speaking tonight. Not a lot of stuff today, so it'll just be headlines and whatever the Trump factor is. Good morning, Jacob. Hey, Christoph. All right. So far this morning, let me move a couple of these windows out of the way. So far this morning, green. Let's just read. Yep. Buy it all. Buy it all, except maybe not some telecoms, but really it's buy it all. Buy it all Tuesday started yesterday with the announcement that Trump was going to delay his 50% tariffs on the EU until July 9th at request of EU, and then that started the buying. Our Slice newsletter came out this weekend. I put in there what I was expecting to happen, and so far only basic materials are down today. Everything else is up, led by technology and comm services. Fed Watch Tool still has 2 cuts priced in by the end of the year. Fear and Greed still selling greed, and Schiller PE 35.64. In terms of earnings, did not see AutoZone this morning yet, but a very light day today. Not much after close. Tomorrow morning we have some retailers like Macy's, Dick's, Abercrombie Fitch, but the big stuff is Wednesday after close with NVIDIA and Salesforce, and that's really going to kick off everything this week. Remember, GDP numbers come out on Thursday, and PCE numbers come out on Friday. Good morning, Anissa. All right. Where do we sit then? Where do we sit? We got the rotation up. I don't like. I wish they'd separate these holiday bars. If somebody knows how to do that, would you let me know? If there's a way in here to do it, I like my holiday bars separated instead is lumped into everything. Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Remember, futures had closed early last night, but it technically, if you look at the 1 hour, we were watching Friday's high, which coming in, what was it was like around, what was it, 58.71, 50, and yesterday, Monday, did close, even though I can't separate the bars, did close above the high technically, so we do have a percent B buy, even though the bar doesn't show it on here, because it's all lumped into one. Now we'll watch to see if it can follow through today. But this would also be a nice pullback in the rotation zone. Rotation back up with daily cycles at the bottom. Now remember, weekly cycles are at the top trying to roll over. I'm now going to be watching for a retest of this high area from last week and possibly checking off this 6,000 area, which is the 87.5. That's what I'm going to be looking for before setting up possibly a bigger topping pattern when we get cycles back to top and top. All right. So, watching for some follow through this week. Shorter term, area on any pullback into the open around 58.65. I'm going to be watching the 58.60 to 58.65. On any rally up, I'm using the harmonics. Using the harmonics, going to be watching. We've already reacted to the 62.5 in the prior little minor breakdown zone. I'm going to be watching for the follow through close about 59.04.75. So 59.05 is very key. 59.05 is very key for me to continue to follow through. We got the close on the prior 4-hour bar at 59.05.25. So that 4 hours was closed above the 62.5. Now I just need the daily to follow through. But on a continued rally, then I'll look at 59.34 and then 59.64. I'm just going to be using the harmonics, especially this key area. You can see this is the breakdown zone, the area I just highlighted, which is roughly in line with that 62.5. So that's what I'm looking at right there. Same thing with the NASDAQ. If we look at the NASDAQ, rotation zone, rotating back up. Same difference here. Key support I'm looking at 21,140 area, and then a more significant support if we did fall down would be 20,955. Other than that, same thing here. Using the harmonics, we're already above the 62.5. Tapping off that 75, 21,350. We get through that. I'm looking for 21,455 area, and then last week's high. And again, this key support is right at the 50% harmonic. It was a prior breakdown zone, turned back into support and reconfirmed overnight. So those are the levels I'm using right there. What else? What triggers a rotation zone buy? Rotation zone buy is as we get into the rotation zone and then take out a bottoming candle in the rotation zone's high. That's what I use. So as long as we close at or above the rotation zone, I'll be using the high, or I'll be watching for any bottoming pattern that's formed on the bottoming candle. That can also be a rotation zone buy. Dow also rotating up. Same thing. Same thing. Just using the harmonics. So the Dow, the key closing level is 42,324. Russell is my least favorite thing, even though it's moving back up and barely held the rotation zone. It's moving back up. It's really having issues at this key major resistance just above the 50% harmonic. So I'll be watching for it to retest those levels. So my magnet price in the short term is this 21,117 area over the next couple of days. But that's what I'm keeping an eye on there. The support is 20,232 on any pullback. VIX 2044. Not much to talk about with the VIX. I'm surprised it hasn't dropped a little more. I'll be looking, though. It's got to get back below 20 to really start sustaining this rally. The DAX, we do have a potential double top, which would be out of the way of the daily rotation zone and into the weekly rotation zone. So that's the only thing I'm keeping an eye on. Other than that, if we take out, we're at new highs compared to last week. On a continued rally, it's 24,630 area. That's the next key thing. If you do the little reverse harmonics too, to see what invalidates the double, it would be off the table at 24,442. The yields pulling back. So just going to be paying attention to the bottom of this rotation zone. Yields taking a little breather, but back down below 4.5. And the 30 years back down below 5. Going to be watching today how we close in that. Again, we'll see. Also, we have the Senate will be looking at the bill to pass the House over the next couple weeks, so we'll have to pay attention to that too on a daily basis and see what comes out of that news. Dollar index into potential double bottom territory. Was watching to see. I'm just going to be watching to see how this closes in relation to Monday's high. Going to be watching in relation to Monday's high how this closes, because technically if we close above Monday's high it would be a percent beat buy, but that would just be for a little bounce play. Could be a front run pattern. Other than that, if we do roll over, I'm paying attention to this 98 level. Very key there. Crude, again, it's confirmed this little double top, but not yet triggered. Still needs a close below 60.47 on a daily basis. So any break below here needs to follow through with a daily close below there for the bigger pullback. Other than that, it's still in consolidation at the upper end of this range. Natty gas, not much to talk about. Gold, still technically, the double's not technically invalidated, but we did close above the 62.5 barely. The channel's still holding. I'm watching on any pullback to unwind any short-term shorts and reestablish short-term longs on any pullback here. So that's what I'm keeping an eye on with silver. Copper's interesting, coming back to dipping slightly below the prior support level or the reestablished support level and now back above it. So I'm going to be watching this. Again, rising, possibly separating rotation zone for a follow-through in copper for a continued move higher. What else? We're getting a little pullback in the yields in Japan finally. But other than that, they got overdone. I talked about that. They were extremely overbought, but I'm watching this weekly rotation zone for get some support and then a rotation back up. Euro, really not much to talk about. Currencies are not much to talk about right now. Spiders and the Qs. Spiders and the Qs. I'm paying attention today to this 588.06 level. That's the 62.5. We're trading. We're going to gap up above there. I want to see if it make sure it closes above there, and then I'm still using harmonics. 590.55, 593.04. The Qs. The key level that I'm looking at there is 516.47. We're going to gap up above there. That's what I'm watching on the closing basis. Other than that, on the continued rally, 518.65, 520.82. What else do we have? We have Bitcoin looking for the continued rotation back up. Same thing. I'm watching to see if this forms a double top this week. If we do break above last week's highs, then my key target is 113.700. Next key target. Does RTY have an inverse head and shoulders? Technically, yeah, with a you need to follow through with a close above 2162. It's a technical pattern. We just have to see. Just have to see if I can click in the right place. If this, yeah, you have the first and second targets in. The first target is key resistance. Really what I'm watching though for, you can trade off that. I need to follow through with the close of the 62.5 where the 200 is. So yes, you do have a technical, it does qualify. AAP long-term bottom, or it will give up the massive gap up. Long-term bottom. It's trying to carve. Oh, why do I have AAPL? AAP. Will it give up the massive gap up? It's trading against. It's trading against very key resistance right now. That's why it has to sustain above this $50 mark. And then your key thing longer term, if you look here, is then it has to get above 58.73. Other than that, I'm watching for potential backfills though. Not backfilling all the way to necessarily fill the gap, though I'm watching for backfills closer to this key support of 43.80 to 44 on any weakness in the market. Would not be chasing this higher at the moment. So that's what I'm taking a look at with AAP. What else do we have going on? We have Tesla, not much to talk about there. Still, again, very key resistance at this 50% harmonic. I'm still watching for rollovers anywhere between 50 and 62 harmonics, but so far it's holding the rotation zone, so very patient with that. NVIDIA, we have earnings this week. We still have the 87. It'll be interesting to see if we get the 87.5 rule before earnings or not. So in the short term, it's got to get above this 137 area to really get the short-term rally on. What is my analysis on uranium? Uranium, I'm now, again, we finished the double, then we dipped below it. We got above the prior peak high, and then we've been off to the races. So on any weakness I'm watching, and remember, uranium jumps around a lot. So on any weakness, I'm watching for buy patterns. We are very, very overbought. Very, very overbought right now. So again, and there's very substantial resistance up here. So again, it's still watching for pullback patterns, but overall, this has proven to be, if you look at the longer term chart, this area has proven to be massive resistance. If it breaks out through here, it's going to be huge. That's why, again, it's still trading around. Nothing's changed, trading around a core position. I'd be looking from a core position to lighten up a little in here and then look to add on pullbacks. And then I'd be more aggressive if it does start sustaining above 34 on a buy mode. How do you adjust your position to compensate for the dividend? I generally I model the options and take a look at it, what it would be, the price would be ex dividend. It just depends on how big the dividend is. I mean, it's tougher on on stocks that pay a larger dividend. If it's not that big a dividend, I don't really worry about it. But if it's a large dividend, like 5-6% dividend, then I just model the price of what I expect it to be. Lots of times, if a dividend's coming out like in the next couple days, or I mean when it goes ex dividend, I just wait. If it's a large dividend. What else do we have? Not much else to talk about. We still have stuff like Meta, which hasn't completed. It hasn't even gotten to the second target yet, so still looking for more upside, pulled back to the rotation zone, and now looking continued rotation back up. We've got daily cycles at the bottom. Amazon, same thing. Amazon is a little weaker. But we have cycles at the bottom, so going to watch for some rotations back up. Amazon's really got to get above. We're gapping up this morning, but Amazon's got to get above this defining point at 205.76 area to really get its move on. Again, that's what I'll be paying attention to there. So still watching to see if these play out to the upside and see going into month end if we get window dressing on some of these. Other than that, not much to talk about. Yeah, NVIDIA earnings is tomorrow. Yep. So it's going to be an interesting week, and that's then remember everything after you got NVIDIA earnings tomorrow and Salesforce. But NVIDIA is going to be that can really set the tone for the market too. And then remember. We have all the GDP information on Wednesday. On Thursday. Sorry, on Thursday. And then why is that stuck there? Why is that doing that? There we go. On Thursday, I don't know why that's sticking up there. There we go. And then Friday, we have PCE and consumer sentiment. So everything's backloaded starting this Wednesday after the close. Okay, LO. Huh, that is sort of interesting. All right. That is sort of an interesting chart too. So this would be another one on any pullbacks. I'd be looking for rotations back up. Thanks. I was not looking at OKL. Oh, thanks for putting that in, Sterling. All right, with that, I have to jump into the open. So I hope everyone has a wonderful trading day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.